um, look what they just did in Georgia. They encouraged this reckless Saakashvili, who was paying Scheunemann, who was a lobbyist for the government. They walked into Putin's sucker punch. They thought, using the cover of the Olympics, vainglorious. Maybe Putin was right that it was all a wag the dog to help McCain's campaign. We don't know that, but what we do know is that it was a catastrophe, and that now Putin's picked off more of their territory. He's already picked off Chechnya so that there won't be any pipelines. It's all about the pipelines. The only pipeline to the west that Putin doesn't control is the one through Georgia, and now he's breathing down the neck of that pipeline. The Israelis were building an airfield there to attack Iran. I can't imagine that they're going to get away with that. So the whole thing, just in terms of the neocon plans, has completely blown up in their face. So the recklessness that we've endured for the last 8 years appears to be, will continue if we
Oh, it would absolutely continue. I mean, they still believe that we can go to war against the world, not only against the Sunni, which that's what the war in Iraq was, against Saddam. He was a Sunni, the 20% minority. They also intend to go to war against the Shia, which is led by Iran now. So we're going to go to war against 1.3 billion people and against the former Soviet Union, all for what? And it's a war we can't pay for. It's a war we can't pay for. We don't have the soldiers. We have to institute the draft. It's just continuing this disastrous foreign policy, which is unprecedented in American history. I mean,
But wasn't the idea, though, that one of the reasons we got into the Caspian was to get a hedge against our total dependence on Middle East oil. Bush blundering into Iraq has made Middle East oil more vulnerable and much, much more expensive. We've seen that. Now their screw up in Georgia has made Caspian oil equally vulnerable, and the Nabucco pipeline, which was supposed to be Europe's hedge against Putin's complete control of the gas flowing out of the former Soviet Union, that one's unlikely to be built. And hasn't the recent Georgian disaster driven Russia and Iran much closer?
Oh, absolutely. The Russians are sending weapons clandestinely to Iran, as they are to Venezuela, as they are to Syria. I mean, they're building a port in Tartus, the Russians. What we've done is created a block against the United States, against American foreign policy. The Europeans are neutral. Actually, they're terrified. But just add up the oil. I mean, this is a hobby horse that I've been on for a long time, but we are addicted to oil, whether we like it or not. But you take the 17 million barrels of oil, which are now under the shadow of Iran, because Iran can remove the tankers passing through Hormuz. They can take 17 million barrels of oil off the market instantly. The Russians now have the Caspian Sea pipeline under their thumb. They can sabotage it, take it out. That's 1 million barrels, and plus the 5 million barrels that Russia exports. And fine, oil today is heading towards $70 a barrel, but overnight, an embargo against us could take off, 25 million barrels, something like that, which would drive the price of oil to $12 a gallon, basically. Which, if you think, if you're wondering whether we're facing depression now, they could ensure a depression.
So, what's the alternative, given that we've had disastrous leadership in this country, and I think it's pretty apparent to everybody that there's no leadership now as the economy seems to be careening out of control. Let's assume that there's no continuation of the Bush foreign policy, and McCain and Palin don't get elected. What's your advice to Obama?
Well, when you're in a hole, stop digging.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Tehran without preconditions. Give them the Persian Gulf. It's called the Persian Gulf for a reason. The Iranians have a consistent history of selling oil on the market, not interrupting. They depend upon oil. They cannot block it off irrationally. We care about oil. I mean, at the end of the day, do we care if the Iranians are the predominant voice? In Iraq, we don't. What we don't want them to do is build a nuclear weapon for two reasons. One is the Israelis will react, and two is it'll start a weapons race in the Gulf. The Saudis will want one next. We sit them down and say, all right, in exchange for not building a bomb, here's what you got to do. We don't have a choice. We cannot go to war against 1.3 billion Muslims. We can't afford it. We don't have enough troops, and so forth. It is a very natural and logical step, especially since the Iranians have gotten out of the terrorism business. And they've gotten out because they know they have more to lose than gain.
But your book, which again we're offering up, The Devil We Know, Dealing with the New Iranian Superpower by Robert Baer, again we're offering it up to 818-985-5735, so to call in and to get this book. It's a premium for supporting Background Briefing. The book itself indicates to me, Bob Baer, that in many ways we backed the wrong horse in that part of the world, that we should have backed the Shia in Iran, and that the Sunni that we've backed, particularly in the form of the Saudi royal family, are becoming increasingly corrupt and irrelevant. So do you see a day when Iran's shadow will be over Mecca and Medina?
Well, I think so. I mean, we have... In 1979, you have to put it in context, there wasn't much choice. It was a surprise to everybody, academics, the CIA, everybody, how quickly the Shah fell. It was a surprise, the vehemence of this revolution. But what we failed to do was catch up with the changes in Iran. It became more rational, calculating power. We completely have to redo our foreign policy in the Middle East, because Saudi Arabia, yes, it's pumped oil very cheaply. The Saudi royal family is very friendly with Washington, but the fact remains 15 of those hijackers were Saudis. We still don't know who recruited them. We still don't know where they got the money from, because the Saudis won't tell us. Pakistan isn't long for this world, the Pakistan we know. If you like, the Sunnis are the equivalent of anarchists. They have no head, they have no pope to guide them as a sect. The Iranians do. They're fairly disciplined. And it's time to just rejigger the alliances. We have to deal with the reality, the facts.
Well, we also, Bob Baer, it seems that so much of our focus is misplaced and we're chasing ghosts. You just wrote a piece for Time magazine suggests that we're likely to blunder into another war. We're risking a war with Pakistan, which is a country on the edge of civil war.
We've been on a ghost hunt for the last 7 years looking for bin Laden. Bin Laden, the evidence is likely he's dead. I've asked my ex-colleagues who have been on his trail, and what I expect them to tell me is, listen, we know he's alive, but I'm not going to tell you why, because you're not inside anymore, which is fine. But what I got instead was half assumed he was dead, half assumed he was alive, but the word is assumed. They don't know. And with that kind of evidence, and the fact that he's not appeared on a legitimate tape, last one he appeared, his hair was dyed, which is not the bin Laden we know. It's probably a doctored tape. He's dead. So what are we going to do? Go into Pakistan and destroy anybody with the potential for violence? That's 40 million Pashtuns we'd have to get rid of. This is insane what we're doing. And you can't fight a war with Predators and Hellfire missiles. This is Conrad's Heart of Darkness. You just don't shell that part of the world and expect the problem to go away. And anyhow, these people can't come to the United States. These Pashtuns,